So what we have here is we're thinking about how we can edit the text. Here it says chapter 1. Just simply click in and you can change. Chapter 1 is the convention. You don't have to stick to convention. What you have to do is ensure that you have similarities throughout the entire of your book. Chapter 1 is the convention that we work by. That's how our books are separated at the moment. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3. If your convention was to call this Dolphin 1, Dolphin 2, Dolphin 3, Explorer 1, Explorer 2, whatever. However you choose to do this has to be something that is set throughout the book. And in most books, if you want to change it, if you want to make it a bit unusual, you have to have a reason. It has to tie into the book, it has to tie into what you're doing, it has to link. So chapter 1 is what would be the standard. If you choose to change that, it's entirely up to you, but it needs to have a reason. It needs to link, otherwise your book isn't going to flow like you want it to flow. You then have a title. This is the title from the chapter. So very simply, it's what the chapter's about. My chapter's going to be about Yorkshire. Then here we have the text. At the moment, this is, as I said, Lauren Epsom. What this is just filler text. It's lots and lots of filler text to show you what text might look like. If I choose to go in here, I can just delete that text and then type. So I might want to say that York was originally, the capital of England. Maybe I want to add that Yorkshire is the largest county in England. So I've got some text. A couple of things I might want to do. Thing 1, what I might want to do with this text is change the font. Here you have fonts. You can click on the A, and under each of these are the main heading of your fonts. So the family of fonts, if you will. Under that, then you get the font, or they've called it the family here, but it's the font and then the typeface. So in my mind, Jill Sands, do I want it regular, normal? Do I want it light? Do I want it italic, light italic, bold italic? And then here is your size. So for this one, I might choose to have, go into English, and I'm going to have Franklin Gothic, and I want it size 14. I want my text to be size 14. So here you are, that's how I would change the font. If I want to change the font colour, or play with the font colour, again, at the end of the day, we've got a grayscale slider, you can have RB slider, you can choose where you want to put that colour. So can you see my font is changing colour here, with the choices that I make from here. Grayscale slider means that you're going to be choosing shades of black and grey. If you select down to the RGB slider, red, green, blue slider is how those colours mix together. This one is the slider you're going to be using. It's all the colours that you need when you're photocopying. HSP slider, I don't know what that is, if I'm absolutely honest. Here it's hue and saturation. Okay. Right, and see now is the yellow kind of colour you get in it to change the colour from things there. I mean, generally, I think you're going to turn with the RGB, or you're going to tell grayscale. You can choose the colour of your font. Here, you could just select your colour and look at opacity. Opacity is the colour see-through or not. So that's your colours. The other thing that you can think about doing is going to the inspector here. Now, the inspector on font has 3 things. It has the text, the spacing of your text, the line spacing, before, after paragraph, and margins. The character spacing and line spacing is how your characters are going to be spaced on the page. Is there going to be big gaps between them, little gaps between them? What's the spaces between each line? We move then on to lists. That's where you can add bullet points. You have tabs. I would imagine at the moment you won't be using tabs. There's something that I'm more than happy to discuss. what they do is it allow, when you press the tab button, it sets what type of tab you're going to have. So if you, for example, had a menu at a restaurant, you'd have a decimal tab. It's something you're probably not going to be using in this. And then you have more. There's a few things I want you to think about in more. You've got your borders, you've got your character fills. But I want you to think down here. There is remove hyphenation for paragraphs. Now, this means that if a word doesn't fit on the line, they will hyphen the word into two sections. I personally don't like that, so I would remove it. Some of you might love it. That's absolutely fine. The other is prevent widow and orphan lines. What this means that is if you have a paragraph of text with one word in the second paragraph, they will look at the spacing in the other lines to ensure that you don't have an orphan word just kicking around sitting there. So these are things to look at what they do and how you want to use them. And these are all the things that are under text. So you can decide how you want your text to look. After text, you've then got the image. So here's this image. We don't want this image, we want our own image. So what we can do to get our own image is we can drag the image in. So if I go into iAuthor and I'm going to choose this image. I could drag this image into here and therefore I have the image. A really important thing to think about is at the moment that image is just sat there. We can resize it. We can choose where we want it to go, and can you see the text automatically wraps around that image? Now I can move this text box up because I want the text to be here. I can sit the image in it, and as I move this image, the text will move around it. The text knows that the image needs to be wrapped around. You can also think about arranging images. Centre back is something I want you to think about if you want an image behind text. Okay, at the moment, I'm just putting it in. You might want to flip it horizontally, you might want to flip it vertically. I have found that if you want to rotate an image, it's better to have the image already rotated before you put it into the software. So that's how you would add an image and manipulate an image. Pretty straightforward.